In putting this tutorial together, I'm going to use some footage from a video that I filmed earlier in this week, so you can just see how everything comes together. We're going to go through the process of labeling, opening, all of those things. So we're going to start with that right now. If you don't have Resolve already downloaded, make sure you do that, and then you can follow along with me. Like I said, I'm going to be using the paid version. You can use the free version, and everything is basically in the same place. So we'll jump into it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start a new project. Clicking on New Project, and then it's going to ask you where to save. So one of the things that I did whenever I first started with DaVinci is I never picked where to save, and that made it a total nightmare. So we're gonna fix that today so you don't end up down that same road that I ended up a couple of years ago. So we're gonna name this Bronson Creative DaVinci Test. And then I'm gonna change the location. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna go on to my desktop, and that's where I'm gonna save it. But I'm gonna create a new folder that's just called DaVinci Files. You can label this whatever you want. Just make sure it's something you remember, because if you don't remember it, it makes it very, very hard to find it in the future. I've had a lot of students that just leave their films as untitled this, untitled that, and it gets very complicated towards the end. So I'm gonna go ahead and press open, and then I'm going to press create. So now we are inside of DaVinci, and we have everything at our disposal here. So up here in the top left, this is going to end up being your media pool. This is going to end up being your viewer. So this is where you're going to be able to see everything. And then you're going to have your timeline down here. You also see that there are a couple things down here at the bottom. And so these things are different parts of the program that you can use. So there's a cut tab, a media tab, an edit tab. Fusion ends up being for special effects. Color is for color correcting. Fairlight is for your sound. And then deliver is to get it out of the program, which we'll do at the very end. So right now, all we're gonna do is we're gonna leave everything alone and keep this where it's at. I'm gonna show you a couple different ways to do this. There are about 3 to 5 different ways to get all of these things. You can right click, as you'll see here. If I right click, and then I can go new bins and import media. I can come up here to file and then go import, or I can just drag things in. I'm gonna show you the long way, and that way you'll feel confident doing the short way in the future. So I'm going to make a new bin, and I'm just going to call it my test. So test footage. And now I have this folder. So if I double click on it, you can see inside of here, and then I'm going to go up and go to File, Import Media. And I'm going to go grab some things off of this hard drive that I have. So I've been filming a lot of stuff for Bronson this week, and so I actually have some things I need to bring in here. But for this DaVinci's basic one, we're just gonna bring in a folder of footage from an experimental film that I'm putting together, and we're gonna use some of the mini DV. So here is a file we're gonna bring in. So I'm gonna open that up, and it's going to import. It might ask you to change your frame rate. So depending on what frame rate you went with, make sure that you're lined up with that. So if you shot in 30, keep it at 30. If you shot in 24, keep it in 24. And for right now, this is a 30 frame per second file because it's off of a mini DV camera. And so we're gonna press change. It's gonna take a couple seconds to import that in, and now we have our actual footage. So you can see that I can scrub through all of this footage. I see the waveform here that's going through it, and so, like I said, this is from an experimental film. This is all footage that I filmed during the pandemic, and I'm putting together now. So if you wanna see more of that behind the scenes, then make sure you like and subscribe to this. I'll be putting this film out over the next couple of weeks. So now what I'm gonna do, I have a footage in here. I'm gonna grab a couple more clips. So I'm gonna go to import media. I'm gonna come back up here, and I'm gonna grab some more footage that's from this. These are from a little handy cam thing that's pretty fun to play with. So I'm gonna bring that in. And I'm also gonna bring in something from an FS7, which is like a 4K cinema camera. So we're gonna go to there, and let's just grab a clip and see what we have. So let's just go with this one. And there it is. So now we have all these different clips, and they're ready to go. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm back in here so I can go back to that master folder, and I'm going to make a timeline. So your timeline is where everything gets edited. So you'll be able to make how many tracks you want, things like that, stereo or mono. And so we're going to go through all of that. So this timeline here, I like to call my timeline either main or primary or whatever you want to call it, and that way you'll know what it is as you move through. You might have 3 or 4 different timelines, and that can get a little confusing if you don't know what you're having. I have 3 clips of video, so I'm going to make this at 3, and then I'm going to leave this at 3 as well. We'll bring in some sound later, and we'll play around with that. I'm going to keep it in stereo because I want to hear it out of both speakers. And now I press create. And what you'll see is it's created me a timeline over here. So now if I go to edit, you're gonna see that timeline. I have all of my videos here and all of my audios. And so now that you're in here, you can do a lot of things to keep organizing. Once again, I think organization is key when you're editing because eventually you'll have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clips or thousands of clips, however big you end up going. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change these to the 3 different cameras. So then I'll know exactly what's on which track. So I'm gonna go FS7, not with that at. I'm gonna go mini DV, and then I'm gonna go handy cam 2K, which is that little kind of goofy one I was saying. And then down here, I'm gonna go with just audio, or I'll go with, let's go with dialogue. There is no dialogue in this, but if there was one. And then I'm gonna go with SFX, which will be sound effects, and then I'm gonna make a music track. So now I have these 3 different tracks. You'll see later that that will become kind of important as we're going through. And to be able to test with that dialogue track, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring in one more piece of footage here that actually I know has some audio attached to it. So let's import that in. So I'm gonna go back into my folders and you'll see everything's organized. And the more organized we are, the easier this whole process becomes. And so what I'm going to do here is I'll grab this footage from a vlog I did a couple days ago and pop it in there. So now I have that footage as well. And let's make another, we can make another track. So let's go add track. And then I'm gonna go XT3 because that's what that camera is. So now what we can do, we can move these things around and resize. You can make things bigger or smaller, totally up to you. And if we double click, you're gonna see that over here we have like a preview window. And then if I drag this down onto my timeline, I will be able to see it on my actual timeline. Since we've made this really organized, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this up to that 3rd kind of track there. If you wanna move these individually, you can lock the track. So now I can move the track back up to the dialogue here and my handy cam is there. So you could make as many of these tracks as you want. I'm gonna keep it pretty easy, but since I don't need any of this talking on this one, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna delete this. I'll use the dialogue from the other track here in a second. So I can unlock this and now I can move this independently. We're gonna do that in a different way now. So I'm gonna delete this. So if I only wanted the video, what I can do is I can click on this little icon right here that looks like a frame of a film, and I can bring this down and drop it on just on my track. So that's what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna grab a couple of these. So here I can go to this FS7 and say that I only want, maybe I wanna just have me walking in. Oh, you can see me looking at that. And so what I can do here is I'm right here maybe, and I can put an in and an out. And so I can set my ins and outs by clicking on these buttons right here. So that is my in, I can drag it out. I could put my out button here and you'll see it put 2 different timestamps here. And then I can bring this down and it's only gonna bring out that part and drop it right where I want it. So if you wanted to cut it after you're on the timeline, then you would just go to this blade tool right here and say that I wanna cut out this part in the middle. I would come right to where it's at. I'd click on it, I'd go back to my arrow, and I would delete everything before. You're not actually deleting anything. Everything is still there, so don't stress. All you're doing is deleting it off your timeline. You have all of your main footage still going on, and so this is a non-destructive program, so you'll have all your original clips. Let's jump back. All right, so now that I'm in here, I have this FS7 one, and what I wanna do is I wanna put some of me talking in there. So now I'm gonna put all of me talking in there. So let's just go over to here. And now I can also do this with an in and out. So you'll see right here, if I press I, that's gonna put my out. I can press space bar, it moves, pause, I can press the O, and now I have an out. So all these different ways. If you're looking for the shortcuts, if you hover over the buttons, it's gonna tell you what the shortcut is. So blade is B, so if I'm down here and I push B on my keyboard, if I come up here to my arrow is A, so I can go to A. You can also change all of these, so make sure, sometimes the shortcuts are not the same for everybody, and so I wanna make sure that you know what your shortcuts are. So just hover over those tools and you will find them. All right, so let's jump back in here, and what I wanna do is I wanna get a little bit more of this footage here with sound, because I'm gonna show you a sound trick here in a little bit. So I'm gonna drag this down on here, and now I have some footage. And then I wanna lock this track because I wanna move my dialogue up to this dialogue track. So there's my dialogue, and now I can have all of the things that are working through it. So now that we're there, we're gonna go to, I can press up and down, and that's gonna jump between clips. So you have a lot of different ways that you can do these things. I'm gonna go to B, and I'm going to trim this, but I need to unlock it. So if it's locked, it will not let you trim anything. Now that I'm back on my A for arrow, I can click on this, and I can change the length of this clip here. As you can see, it's moving my audio, so you guessed it, if I don't want that to happen, I can press unlocking the audio, and now I can just get rid of the video down here. So now, if I'm playing this, you'll hear it, it'll cut to the other footage, you still hear me talking, all of these things over the top, and I'm cutting back to all of these pieces of footage that I put there. All right, so I'm gonna jump in here and I'm gonna grab one more piece. Let's see what we got in here. This is from a while ago. You'll see there's some masks. This is pre-pandemic, or this is actually during the pandemic. So let's see what we got. This is actually my little brother here, shooting some 16mm film. So shout out to Brandon. This is the first time he'd ever shot any film, but we went on a little road trip together and were able to do that. So what I'm gonna do now is grab this piece of footage, drag it down here to the bottom, and now I've filled in this gap. So if I press play, I'll be able to get into there. And now what you'll see is I have some footage that is different sizes. They're different aspect ratios. So if I want to change those kind of things, I can come into my inspector and you'll see all the things I have right here. If I wanted this to be on top of it, I could just drag it on top of it. Now it's on the bottom of it. And so what you can see is, because this is 16:9 and this is 4:3, I'm gonna need to crop a little bit if I didn't want that footage to be leaking out. So I can click on the crop and I can bring this over and crop out the back of it. Now it's gone. So now I have this footage on top of it. In a second, it's gonna jump to the other one. So it's changing aspect ratios, which is not a big deal, but just something to think about. You're layering on top of everything. And so if you've ever used Photoshop or anything like that, you will notice that it's basically kind of a similar file structure. Whatever's on top is what you're going to see. Okay. All right, so what we're gonna do now, we have about 25 seconds on here, and we're gonna act like this is the final film that we're going to do for sake of editing and tutorial today. I don't wanna waste a lot of your time so you can get back to your project. But now that we have everything in here, let's add some credits and some graphics. So I'm gonna go in here into my titles, and you can see that I have some credits here. Some of these things may not be available inside of your version if you're using the free. I am using the paid version, so you pay for it once and you get to keep it forever. So thank you, DaVinci, for doing that. This is the same version since like version 13 or something that I've just been updating. And so what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna add a track above this. That's video 5, or video 6, and I'm gonna call this graphics. And so let's just try this one here. That's kind of fun. So we'll click on the title and we're gonna come up here and we're gonna go learn to edit. And then I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller so it'll fit inside of my whole window. And then whenever I press spacebar, which is play, it is just going to be right there. You can find things that are animated and all kinds of stuff. It's totally up to you. You can change to your heart's content. You could use Canva, but DaVinci has a lot of really cool stuff inside of there, so you could be able to use it. And so we have our title here. And boom, boom, boom. So now that I come through here, I can come to the end and say that I want to put a little timestamp on here, or not a little timestamp, but like a little bumper at the end, because I'm gonna upload it and I want you to be able to find it in the future. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back into import media and I'm gonna find that bumper. So I have some bumpers already made, you may not, but what we'll do in here is we'll find a little Bronson end YouTube. So if you've watched some of the other videos, you'll probably find that. This is all timed to the exact time, so all I have to do is drag it on here, and now I have my ending. So it says, thank you for watching, all that kind of stuff. So we're getting very, very close, but first we're gonna fix some of this audio here. So whenever I start with audio, it's from this, you can hear that. It's from a lavalier mic. And so lavalier mics will pick up a lot of extra noise sometimes. And so thankfully in DaVinci, you have a lot of tools. And what you can do in here is we can go into the Fairlight tab, and this is gonna be where your audio is at. And so if you do anything on one track, it will do it on everything, which is pretty cool. So what I can come over here is to A1, and I can come down to my EQ, which stands for equalizer, and I'm just gonna double click on it. You may not know exactly what all of these things do, but that doesn't mean you can't use them. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna play with a little bit of equalizer, and we're gonna drown out some of the noise that's on my mic. So here we go. So if I come up here and I go to male lav finisher or female lav finisher, so this is going to go for different registers of the voice. So pick the one that works best for you. And it's going to put a little curve on that. And what it's going to do is it's going to take away some stuff on the bottom. You can hear that the sound gets a little bit fuller. It also kind of gets rid of some of the background noise. So bare minimum, doing this really quick will help you to be able to level out your sound. When you're putting together sound, you want to try to get between this 0 to -10 where it's bouncing right here. When it's in the red, it's actually starting to clip. So if it stays up there for too long, you'll get a lot of distortion. So you probably heard videos on the internet where you hear all of that distortion. Also, if it's too low, then somebody's gonna have to turn up your video to listen to it, or your film, and then they're gonna have to turn it down for the next one. So you might have recognized that when you're watching TV over the internet, that it's really loud, and then it goes to the commercials, that's even louder, and then it comes back and it's off. And so that's a mixing thing. And so try to do that, because people that are watching your films will enjoy that they don't have to turn their TV up and down. All right, and so we're gonna go into full screen. The shortcut for that is going to be Command F, and it's going to go full screen. So now if I press spacebar, it's playing, and here's our film. So we have this whole video that's playing, and this is the best film we're ever gonna make. Probably not, but we have our completed thing, and so now is the part to get it out of the computer. So we're gonna do that next. So now we have everything in here. We have our main timeline, we have all those endings, we have our footage, and we're gonna go to deliver. When we're in deliver, you're gonna see the timeline down here, so you can kind of scrub through that. You're also gonna see all these little blocks, and what these are basically every time you've edited to another clip, it's giving you these as like a timestamp of what's going on. So this is just good to know. If you don't see everything there, then make sure you go back and make sure you have everything highlighted properly. Sometimes if this goes like this, you'll see that it's not the whole thing. This kind of blacked out. And so now what I'm gonna do is I wanna make sure that's at the very end, and that's at the end. We have all of our footage now. So that's good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna name this, and I'm going to call this Learn to Edit V1, and then I also like to put a date on things. And I believe today's date is August 6th, so I go 8/6/25. And the reason that I do that is so if for some reason I'm looking through this and I go, oh my God, where is that first version of it? Then I can find it and be able to get to it a little bit quicker. So I'm also gonna go to Browse, and then I'm gonna click on this bigger arrow, and I'm gonna go back to my desktop, and I'm gonna go back into those DaVinci files that I have. And I'm gonna make a new folder in here just called Exports. This is just the way that I label things. Don't feel like you have to label them exactly the same. Make sure that you're labeling them in a way that you find them, and then kind of sharing that process if you end up with an editor or other creative people that you're collaborating with. So make sure you know where it's at. So now that we're in here, we're gonna press save. Our timeline is at 30 frames a second because that was what we set it at for that mini DV clip. There are 24 frame per second videos in here too. But that was what I set it up from the beginning. So make sure that you toggle that on from the very, very beginning. And then we're just gonna go with QuickTime, and we're gonna go H.264. If I'm talking over your head right now, please let me know in the comments, and I'll make a little video about what codecs are, but these are just different ways that you can export for the internet and export for Blu-ray and DVD and all these kind of things. So everything is a little bit different, but if you're just trying to get it onto YouTube or Instagram or just on the internet in general, H.264 is gonna be a good friend for you. And then we're gonna go to the timeline resolution unless you wanted to bump it up to something. So we're just gonna go with 1920 by 1080. There are some 4K things in there, but for ease of conversation today, we're gonna keep it there. So we have it in our desktop DaVinci files that we made, Learn to Edit V1 8/6/25. We want it as a single clip, so we wanted to make sure that it's one clip. If you needed to export these out for somebody else and you wanted to keep everything individual, then you click that individual clip. Really not necessary unless you're going to a different color program or you're passing this off to somebody else that will be on a different editing machine. And now we're gonna add to render queue. Adding to the render queue does not mean it's rendering. So I've had this happen a lot of times and go, why is it not there? Why is it not there? And so follow along here. All right, now it's in there and we're gonna go render all. This is gonna be pretty fast, probably about 20 seconds because it's so short. And you can see it actually plays through as we're going, which is nice. So you'll be able to find out if there's a drop frame or anything like that. One of the things that I have had happen during this process is your memory whatever you're using for memory will fill up and it'll fail at some point, but it'll say it's completed. And so if you get in there and it's a file that will not open, make sure that you have enough memory on your hard drive or wherever you're exporting to. And so I've had that happen to me a couple times and it's a little frustrating. So now we have everything here. It only took 20 seconds to get out. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna minimize this and we're gonna come into our files here and see if we have it. So Learn to Edit V1. You can see right here it's playing. It'll say all of these, duration 33. So if this is just a blank and you don't have a video icon there, that means you might have ran out of room on your memory. So we're going to double click and go full screen. And here is our film. We made this whole film and it was ready to go. So we have a title. Make sure you have a title on there. You did some hard work on it. Make sure you put your name on it, all those kind of things. Make sure people know who it is. Nothing's worse than doing all this work and then finding out that, you know, you didn't have the work on there, or you didn't credit some of your friends that helped you on it. And so just make sure everybody, especially if they're helping you out for free because they believe in your vision, that you're actually crediting them. So that's all for today in this episode, the basics of DaVinci. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope this gets you started on your film. If there's anything else you'd like to learn, drop it down in the comments. I'll go a little bit deeper. But until then, I can't wait to see what you create.